Selena, alcoholic. Thank you, Keith, for having us out tonight. I have a sobriety date of March 1st, 2023. I have a sponsor whom I just could weld up with tears thinking about how much I love her. And I have a home group, the Battleship, Iowa, Wednesday nights at 7:30 speaker meeting. I'm grateful to be here. I have 10 minutes to get loaded and recovered. So I'm going to give you guys a little background. Let's start with conception. So my dad got 2 women pregnant within the same time frame, and one was his girlfriend and one was my mother. And they met up and they confronted him. This is the story I was always told when I was like, do I have a dad? And my mom would tell me this story. She's one of us, and she's one of those when they say in the big book, some are sicker than others. That's her, Deb. Uh-oh, we're recorded, huh? So they met up and they confronted him and they asked him who he wanted to be with. And he chose his girlfriend. And he moved away to Arizona, and he cut off all ties with everybody in the South Bay, including my mom. And I have a sister who's my exact same age, 3 months to the day younger than me. And the first time I ever heard from my dad in my entire life is when I was 35 years old and he Facebook friend requested me. That's a story for another day. So I was left with Deb, my mother, who's one of us and sicker than others. And she got married, and they would throw these big wild parties, you know. And it was so much fun, and I'd run around with the kids and we'd have so much fun, and then everybody would go home. And then I would have to listen to my stepdad beating my mom in the next room. And I would hide under my bed for some reason. That was like my little safe place, you know? And none of this of what I'm going to say tonight makes me an alcoholic. But there's something super, super important that I saw in the 12 and 12. I'm going to keep this talk kind of step 4 related because it really was very special for me in this whole healing process. So I would hide under my bed, and then I'd wake up in the morning, and most nights were like that. I'd get up to make myself cereal and go watch cartoons, and there would be lines of cocaine on my baby picture, you know, on the counter. And I didn't know what that was, and I didn't know what the little cut-up straws were all over the carpet, but I knew that they were bad, you know. And now being 45 and an alcoholic, I could think of about 15 better surfaces I've done cocaine off of that were not my daughter's face. But that got dealt with thoroughly in step 4. In the 12 and 12, in step 4, it says in paragraph 1, biologically and by design, we're given instincts as human beings, right? These instincts are set up to multiply us, to keep us safe, to just basically for like our survival. And then in paragraph 2, it talks about that in and through life circumstances, those same instincts can become misguided, right? I like to think of it like it's like the train that goes around the Christmas tree that gets knocked off the tracks, and it's just bumping into the wall, bumping into the wall, bumping into the wall. It's like the older I got, the more I tried, the more I just bumped into the wall. And I didn't know why. You know, my life just wasn't working. And I thought I was broken, you know, because of the circumstances that I'd been through in my whole life. And because, you know, my dad went off to raise his 2 other kids, but not me. And my mom went off to raise her 2 other kids, but not me, you know. And I thought that was always like an odd coincidence. But I saw myself as a little girl when I read that part in step 4 about the instincts, hiding under my bed. And my natural born instincts should have been to fight or flight, but I couldn't do either one of those. So that instinct became misguided, and I had to learn how to disassociate. I had to learn how to mentally remove myself from where I was physically because it was too much for me to handle. I saw things I shouldn't have seen. I heard things I shouldn't have heard. And I couldn't handle it, so I had to learn how to mentally remove myself from where I was physically. Thank you. And my first time ever drinking, we were drinking tequila sunrises. My cousin was just kind of sipping on her tequila sunrise and enjoying her little light buzz. And I was just running back to my grandpa's bar and just more and more and more tequila. And I blacked out that night. And I found the greatest form of disassociation I've ever experienced in my life. I was able to push pause on what became a very active, alive, like almost like a carbonation of a bubbling of the feeling of ill will, the feeling of continuously being opposed, enmity, like someone's coming to get you, was bubbling through my veins. I could always feel it like carbonation, like I was hooked up to an IV, and it never ceased. And the only time that it ceased was when I blacked out that night. It finally just shut down. I was able to push pause on life. And I'm the variety of alcoholic who hits rock bottom and a fire hydrant in the same night. And I drank like that every night since then for 21 years straight without missing a night. I blacked out every single night. When I hit rock bottom, I was home. It was comfortable. It's what I knew. So I made a home there, like a deep sea dweller, And I don't really have like a white light experience of coming into the rooms. I think I was more kind of spit out of a tornado onto the battleship Iowa. And I was just like, what the hell was that for the last 21 years? And then I was there, And you guys told me to get a sponsor, and I did. And I got into these steps, and my sponsor had what I wanted. And she said the most amazing thing, the first time I ever heard her speak, and she said, everyone's talking about like what color they want to paint the walls, and I want to put a freaking gun in my mouth. And I was like, oh, she's perfect. And so she had what I wanted, and I did precisely and exactly what she did, even when it made me uncomfortable. And most times it did make me uncomfortable because when I got here, I was feral, spiritually feral. So peace and serenity, I recoiled from it. I want to slam my head into a wall. It was so uncomfortable. But I kept doing it, and I kept showing up, and I kept coming to meetings. I went to 3 meetings a day for the first 370 some odd days, because it's the only place that my skin felt like it fit right in these meetings, And what it's like now is like, it's like in and through step 4 and 5, all of those things that I had suppressed and numbed my entire life came to life and were ruling my mind, turning the inside of my mind into a living hellscape. It's like those things started to come to the surface finally. And each thing, my hands are off of it now because I handed over my will and my life to the care of God. Each thing was being healed and disposed of and placed back on the shelf. And I get to take those things down today, and I get to share them with people, and I get to be useful. But the most amazing thing happens is that vessel gets opened up, because I have a spiritual malady that looks like scoliosis of the spirit, right? It's pointed back to me, and I'm the main power source, and it's plugged in under my armpit, and it's not lighting up. But when I'm able to be of service, when I'm able to show up and speak, even though I feel like a nervous wreck sometimes, when there's like people, but when I'm able to do these things, it opens up that vessel. It straightens it out. And if I'm able to get myself out of the way long enough, it flows back to me and changes everything on the inside of me. And it's so amazing, because what's happening for me today is I'm being set back on those tracks I got knocked off of for the original intention for my life today, And I get to share that with other people. And I have a solution today, I reached in my toolbox, and all I had all my life was like wine and comedy, which worked pretty well, I thought, for a long time until it didn't. But today it's like I have a solution, and it's getting outside of myself as soon as possible. I have a purpose, not just a purpose, but a primary purpose to help the next alcoholic who still suffers, And that's all I think about in these big book studies and these 12 and 12 studies is like, how much more effective this is going to make me for the alcoholic who still suffers. Because what if I was just doing these big book studies, thank you, and it was just going to be me using it on me, And self-reliance will always fail me. So it's designed. This program is designed to freely give it away. This program is designed for us to be like effective for the next alcoholic who still suffers, and the weight of the world comes off my shoulders, you know? If I keep doing that, just like Keith told me, all this could be yours one day, kiddo. You know, when I went over his house and bought his car, and I'm like, wow, what a cool house. He's like, all this could be yours one day, you know? And I believe it today, you know, that I am creating a life beyond my wildest dreams. I'm being set back on the track for the original intention for my life. And my prayer for everybody tonight, if you've not experienced that, is that you get a sponsor who has a working knowledge of the big book, and that you're able to experience freedom. And you're able to be acclimated into this program where you actually enjoy it today. Thank you.
I don't even know her. I love her. Okay. Join me in the serenity prayer. Grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know. Thank you so much. All right, here we go. Now, our main speaker will share her experience, strength, and hope with us. Please join me in welcoming Julie G.
Thank you, Miko. I'm Julie. I'm an alcoholic. It's really good to be here. And thank you, Keith, for asking me to participate in my sobriety. You'll probably wish Selena had the longer talk when I'm done. I love Alcoholics Anonymous. I have a sobriety date. It's April 13th, 1998. That was my first meeting, and I had no intention of staying sober. I got picked up. I lived in San Francisco. I got picked up by a woman who, this therapist asked her to pick me up and take me to an AA meeting, and never saw her again, and had never seen her, you know, but I've stayed sober. I haven't had a drink or a drug since then. I have a sponsor, and that's Susan Y. in San Pedro, and my home group is Monday night, 12 and 12, step study. I'm really into book study meetings. I'm really into getting into the book. I tend to be very serious about AA, and sometimes that doesn't make me tons of friends, and you know, that's okay with me. I like to weed them out. And thank you, Selena. That was incredible. Selena makes me look like a brilliant sponsor, doesn't she? But, you know, I go through dozens and dozens and dozens of sponsees to get one Selena, you know? The rest are like, sometimes I hear some of these women that I sponsor, they're talking, and I'm like, they say things like, I choose today not to drink. And I'm like, where the hell have you ever heard that? I just don't know where they come up with this stuff. But I'll just give you a little background. It will not begin at consumption because my conception was much more boring. But I just got sober accidentally, as I said. I lived in San Francisco. I wanted to die, and I was afraid I'd kill myself. I had 3 little girls, and I had a husband who he loved me, but he didn't like me very much, and I thought he was a jerk. And these 3 little girls, let's see, the littlest one just had a birthday yesterday. She just turned 35. And so she was, whatever that is, 1998 to now. So she was little. And then I had 2 other girls. And, part of the reason I love to do anything with AA is because all those girls lived to adulthood. I was a daily drunk driver. I didn't consider myself to be drunk. I considered myself to be a drinking driver, and that I could handle my drinking, and that I was a better driver a little loaded than y'all are sober. And so I didn't consider myself to be a menace. I felt y'all were the menaces. And but somebody had to kind of point that out to me, that that was actually the thing that got my attention, was somebody saying to me, "You're the biggest menace in your kids' lives." And I was like, "No, it can't be true. I'd take a bullet for my kid." They were like, "No, you're the biggest problem." And that got my attention, just this one thing. Because all I wanted to do was go die. And after that woman took me to that meeting, then it was like this whole thing happened. And I was sent to a rehab. And the rehab, which I had no idea what a rehab was. 37 years old, no clue what a rehab is. No clue that I have a drinking problem. Y'all have the problem because you don't get my drinking. And, it was very puritanical in San Francisco in 1998. Didn't understand anything like drinking or drugs up there. But it was just this deal I made with the therapist. She said, "You go 2 weeks to a rehab. If you don't feel better, I'll have you institutionalized." And I'm like, okay. So then I get there, and I didn't know what I didn't know anything. I didn't care anymore. See, that was my superpower, was I didn't care anymore. I hear people say they come to meetings and they're like, "Well, I didn't like this," or blah, blah, blah. I didn't care. I didn't care what you guys were doing. I was just sitting there because then I was going to go get locked up and get the little wheelie thing of IV drugs and the little, slippers with a happy face and a little robe, just so that my kids wouldn't find me dead. And that's all I was trying to do, was lock myself away from my kids, from harming myself. And instead, they brought in all these AA people. And I was blown away, because the people in the rehab were insane. And what I noticed is, even though I stayed sober, they were all getting loaded. Everybody was relapsing. Oh yes, we have a relapse prevention program, and then everybody's getting loaded. Everybody, after it was like I'm on my fourth roommate. And they all came, like I showed up, I said, "What am I supposed to take to a rehab?" And this the woman said, "Just bring a paper bag with some sweatpants, pajamas, and a toothbrush." And let me tell you, that's what I showed up with. That's as much as I didn't care. And all these other women are showing up with like the fully accessorized rehab stay with matching luggage. And the last one that came to be my little roommate, du jour, she started to put up little pictures on the wall. And I said, "Don't bother, you ain't staying." It's like, one of us is going to stay, and it ain't going to be you. And I was right. I was right about that. The numbers are not good for survival. But anyway, so I ended up hearing the thing I heard that was different, because they talked a lot from somebody like me who had actually been to professional therapists that you pay for, that are actual professionals. These people in these rehabs, I was like telling them, I'm like, that's not how you do a psychodrama, and we would have to have like a thing because I was so angry, and they'd have to talk about how angry Julie was. And so we went through that, and they say, "Why do you speak so loudly?" It's a lot of finger pointing at me. But what happened was, when the AA people came in to speak, I heard them talk about a spiritual program of action. And I was like, "What's that? That sounds like something that is workable. That sounds like something that works." And then they talked about AA, and they brought in all these AA little speakers. It was probably this many people. It was co-ed, and I was just blown away. And I would go up and talk to them afterwards, and they would talk to me. One of these guys said, "How many days you got?" And I said, "I got 4 days." And he said, "Just help all the people. Just go up to somebody who has less time than you do. Tell them how you made it the 4 days." And he goes, "That's what you do from now on." And so I started doing that because I had nothing to lose. And it didn't matter to me anymore if this worked or not. I have a regular panel the first Saturday of the month. Laura goes a lot, Laura, my friend here. Hi, Laura. And she goes with regularly, and we have our little crew that goes. But and that was one of the things I was taught right away by those old timers, is you get service, you get into service. It says it right in the Big Book. We talked a lot about that. Like, I heard a lot about the Big Book in the steps, and that's what I was taught in AA right away. In San Francisco, they say all the time, it's the steps, it's the steps. This ain't self-help, baby. And then I moved to South Bay, okay? And I was like, what's happening? What's happening here? And people were really into the fellowship. This is a really nice meeting. Everybody's really nice. And I was like, okay, but they're not, I can't vibe with them. Like, I don't know what they're talking about. As Selena pointed out, that was one of the things that was killing me. A lot of these people actually got kicked out of, which I love to talk about. I got kicked out of the Saturday morning, where I know Brittany from, the Saturday morning women's meeting, used to be in the back room in Hermosa Beach. And after I'd been going to that meeting for a couple of months, and number one, not one of the women had spoken to me. And they always ask, are you new to the meeting? Are you new to the area? And not one had ever said boo to me. And they all, and so my share one day was, I feel like I'm in an Al-Anon meeting. Half of you women are crying about the men you don't have, and the other half are bitching about the men you have. I go, did any of you ever drink? And so they had a little talk with me. A little clique of them came up to me after and said, we think you're too angry to be coming back to this meeting. And so you need to get more sobriety before you come back. And I was like, wow, what a trip. I'm like a year and a half sober at this time. They had no idea how angry I was when I got sober and new in San Francisco. I was like, you should talk to the San Francisco people. I'm like the poster child for decreased anger around here. But all I did, all those things that happen, those wacky things that can happen if you have a big mouth like I do, is I just snuggled up closer to my higher power. Because, and I learned right away. And when people talk about, the fellowship, I'm like, girlfriend, I stayed sober in spite of the fellowship multiple times. And this is this lovely thing that we have, the fellowship part that we're doing tonight, and this is a killer meeting with all the food, and everybody's friendly, and it's nice, and it's like real mellow atmosphere, like I like it here. And it's a beautiful fellowship meeting. And we actually have these meetings for people who are seeking fellowship, because we all know each other. Like, maybe I don't know every single person in this room, but there's a handful of people in this meeting that I have your numbers in my phone. And I can call you, and if I want somebody else's number, I'll go, that guy who got up and gave that announcement, I was going to call him for, this kind of thing. So we know each other, but we're looking to help. And the meeting is an opportunity to be of service. So, I was taught right away, when I'd go to a meeting and I'd tell my sponsor, I got a sponsor right away. They said, get a sponsor. I don't like people asking me questions. I don't like strangers asking me questions. Do you have a sponsor? I'm like, I don't know you. Don't question me. And then I just thought, I'm just going to put an end to this and get a sponsor. And I found this woman. I really wanted a guy sponsor, because men say things like, the old time guys would say to me, just stay sober today, kid, come back tomorrow, you're doing great. Okay, now that might not sound like anything to save your life, but to somebody who is, as Selena said, for the first year of my sobriety, I'm thinking about putting a gun in my mouth every day, because drinking, it stopped working. And I'm just trying to not do that, and I'm trying to not hurt people. And, but so I just started on this whole thing of getting into the steps, into serving others. I was taught when I'd call my sponsor and say, I hated that meeting, I don't want to go back, and which was with some frequency. And she would say, it's not about you. Go looking for somebody who's more unhappy than you are. It's about you having an opportunity to serve somebody. Just go look for them. You don't have to be happy in the meeting. Get a commitment. And I knew the first time I heard about commitments, and what are the big meetings, like a big speaker meeting, what commitment do they get? Oh, you can put away the chairs. You can make the coffee. This is like stuff you should pay people for, right? That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, oh, they pretend this is helping us so that we'll do all the work around here. Like, I get it, you guys. It's cute, but okay. And then what I found was when I got those commitments that I didn't see any sense in getting, but I also didn't want you to ask me anymore if I had a commitment. I could just grunt yes to you or go, yeah, I got a commitment. Then I'm making friends with people who also have my kind of, negative attitude. Like, yeah, I don't know why we put the chairs up. They're the ones who sat in them, and we did that whole thing. But meanwhile, I'm making friends that also have a bad attitude, but we're also staying sober, right? And so we're just hanging out, and I'm doing everything my sponsor tells me to do because, again, I don't care. And I figure I want to try this step thing and if I want to make sure I give it 100%, because if it doesn't work, I am going to put that gun in my mouth. Or they'll just have to keep me drugged and locked up in that, my fantasy hospital where I'm going to go. And so I just kind of jumped in with both feet. And it's the thing I always think about, like, one of the things it says is that, God can take our worst character defects and they can be transformed into our greatest assets. That's kind of what happened for me around here. Like, what's one of my worst character defects? Like, first of all, my favorite place to drink is at my house by myself with the alcohol I bought at the correct price. The service is impeccable and the company is even better if I'm alone. But I would go to bars to drink so I could feel normal. Like, oh yeah, this is what people are doing all over the place. But why did I start telling you about why I'm drinking in a bar? But I don't know what it had to do with anything. It'll come back to me. But I was telling somebody the story last night, how I remember in San Francisco, I went to this liquor store that I frequented, and in the morning I had gotten a handle of vodka. And in the night I went back for another one, and the guy said to me, the clerk, he goes, didn't you just buy one this morning? And I went I go, hang on a second. And I went outside, I look up at the sign, I go, this is still a liquor store, right? And he goes, yeah. I go, oh, I'm sorry, I thought I wandered into the library and you don't want to sell me alcohol. And it's like, but that's the kind of attitude I have when I'm drinking. And people would say, you're going to lose your husband, you're going to lose your car, you're going to lose your kids. And I'd be like, take them. I don't care. Why would I care? Why would I care? It's like what's interesting is I'm not so much a Jekyll and Hyde drinker, but I don't know, that kind of sounds like I am. But I'm a little, my whole reasoning changes, and you can't make sense with me. That's why it's so great to work with newcomers and try to help people that come in new, because I see myself in them all the time. I mean, I tried to help this one woman. She had shot in a drunken rage. I don't even know if she was rageful. She was irritated, in a drunken irritation. She had shot her husband 5 times. Yeah, it didn't faze her. It fazed you more. It did not faze her. And she was just trying to, it had been recommended she go to some AA meetings. And so I'm like trying to talk to her about 20 questions and, well, what about this? And she just she couldn't see what we were talking about. Couldn't see what we're talking about. I said, but and she said, no, I didn't do, none of those things happened to me. I said, you shot your husband. Like, they came and they took you away, right? She said, yeah. I said, well, so look, at least the neighbors, you must have gone down a tick or two in your neighbors, estimation. That's one of the questions in the 20 questions, where your social had been harmed. And I said, I don't know where you live, but like, I'm sure even no matter where you live, like people start looking at you differently when they take you away for shooting your husband. And she was like, no, she goes, I just live in San Pedro. She said, but it was late at night, so I don't think anybody heard it. Like, that's like the time when you hear it, right? It's like, because it's dead quiet and then everything's going off. But that's why I feel badly. It irritates me, and I feel badly for people who say, oh, I don't sponsor. I actually have a sponsee right now who's been my sponsee for 5 years, and I've thought I could cajole her into this. And I've watched her get more and more and more miserable. And so I thought, well, one of these days she's going to crack. And it's all, and the more I see it, the more I know it. She has always not, I can't sponsor. And she'd like refer people. People will go up to her and say, could you sponsor me? She goes, oh no, meet my sponsor. I can't do it, you do it. I'm like booked, and I can't say no, because that could be, I want to at least get somebody in to try to help and not say no to somebody, because that's just what I was taught. I was taught I'm always one sponsee short. And, my sponsees that are here tonight, they do sponsor people. Thank you both. But you see, there's some magic that happens when I am reliving these things through the eyes of somebody brand new to me and where they are and the madness that, don't you know I'm different? Don't you know it's all different? You don't get it. And I hear it and I know that's me. I was there, I was this close to missing all of this, to maybe killing my kids. And, and it's one reason I'm so passionate about AA. And it's one reason, it's funny because I think Keith heard a talk I gave ages ago. I don't think I've been asked, I was asked to speak one more time at Torrance Memorial after that. They made a mistake and accidentally asked me to speak again. But I had said one time, because all these women I was sponsoring in San Pedro were having all this problem with the houses they lived in. And then I would hear all these people talking about the predatory men in AA. The predatory men in AA. Oh, stay away from the predatory men. And I'm like, I'm sorry, the problem I'm having and my sponsees are having is the predatory lesbians that are running all the houses in San Pedro AA. And everybody lost it. And, a lot of people were not happy, but it was the truth. And so now everybody seems to be, the lesbians are behaving themselves in AA and San Pedro. And actually one, like House of Hope, there was a really bad chick there. And she got taken out, and I was like, not taken out like, like I think, but just she was removed from her job, and but she was loaded all the time and acting crazy, and I'm taking my little sponsees back, and it was nuts. She was horrible, and. But that was going on. It was just this time. But there's phases to everything. And what I knew was when I got sober, it was the old dudes that were helping me. And once I was sober, like a year, I remember saying to these guys, going, how come none of you ever hit on me? Isn't that a ringing endorsement? And they said, well, we listened to what you were talking about, like you were crazy. And we really wanted to help you. And they did. They just kept it simple. And in the beginning, the women also wanted me to stop saying the F word. You notice I haven't said it once tonight. And that's not me. That is God. Yeah. And they wanted me to stop smoking, which I thought was insane because I just stopped drinking and doing drugs. They wanted me to dress like a lady, and I was like, do you see my sponsors, other sponsees? They're like hookers and dancers. They're like barely dressed. Leave me alone. And I went out and I said to this old guy, Frank Brennan, he had 52 years when I got sober. My sponsor introduced him to me. He would go on to help me incredibly. And I said, Frank, they're fucking telling me I can't say the F word, I can't do this, I can't do that. And he goes, God will remove the defects of character that stand in the way of your usefulness to him and to your fellows. Okay? And I like that because I picked my first sponsor because she said the F word and God in the same sentence. And she was like a badass. And I just thought, oh, that's something I could, if she can stay sober, maybe I can stay sober. And that was those were the people I followed. And I have always been thrown in with, like I was told too, step over the bodies. In San Francisco, they don't just say, stick with the winners. They say, step over the bodies and stick with the winners. And in my first year and a half in San Francisco, people died left and right. And I remember coming here and I went to TLC and somebody had died and people were like, boo-hooing. And I was like, doesn't this happen all the time here? Like, I couldn't understand. Like, it's like this happens all the time. And it was such a serious thing to me. And you know, I was listening to some Joe and Charlie. Those guys hold up, you know, they just hold up because they're in the book. It's old school. It's OGAA. And they were talking about, this is, you know, a bunch of years ago, about how many people, he goes, yeah, we try to get all these people to come into AA so we could save them. He goes, look around in the rooms, how many of us are dying of alcoholism in the rooms with the idea, oh, don't worry, it's the fellowship that will keep me sober. I just come to a meeting when I feel like it. Or like one of the biggest, I think it's the weirdest thing people say is, if I ever feel like drinking, I'll call. Nobody has ever called me that felt like drinking. They have called me when they felt like they didn't want to drink, you know, but they've never called me and said, I want to drink. You're out drinking if you're one of us. And so, you know, but so this love of AA got me into, I was also taught, take all these commitments. You know, go and do, I was given at 6 months sober, this woman who I couldn't stand, who had 22 years. I thought all the women when they turned 22 years sober, I thought just turned evil temporarily or something, because they were always picking on me. But she came up to me on my 6 months sobriety and she goes, here, Julie, you have a panel. They don't call it a panel up there. I can't remember what they call it. And she gave me this panel and she said, you're going to go there, you're going to go once a month and here's what you do, blah, blah, blah. And I just went in cold. And it was let me tell you, it was a bizarre panel. But I went and it was like my panel. And it was in the hate and it was like, it was crazy. But I did that. And then I had another commitment that I found, because right away I learned, like, if you get in the book and you're in the very beginning of the book, in the very, very beginning, it immediately starts talking to you about not only powerless over alcohol, our lives are unmanageable, it starts schooling you how to talk to newcomers. How do we talk to somebody who's new? Right away. And so if I ignore that, I'm not really doing the whole thing, and I'm not going to get all the benefits. I'm super greedy. I'm a greedy, like the same way I drank, I do AA. And so I want the benefits of sobriety. And so I'm getting into that. And I started, I had gotten, that's how I do AA. I had gotten off track. I do AA the same way when I would go into those bars. And I didn't sit there and go, you know, sit in a corner and hope somebody would sidle by and ask me if I wanted something to drink. I'm at the bar. You know, yeah, I want to drink. And I'm only going where it's a good, strong drink, and Bubba brings me the drink, and nobody else tries to send me a drink because Bubba says she won't take your drink. Don't talk to her. Let's not have any problems. Don't talk to her. She has plenty to drink. And that's how I do AA. I see the winners. I see Bubba. He's a winner. He's my bartender. I come here and I see, like, the Frank Brennans. I see all the people here that are winners to me, that are sober, that do the thing, that have commitments at a meeting, that aren't just doing a little drive-by. Oh, that was a good meeting, that was fun. Okay, blah, blah, blah. But I don't sponsor people, and I can't really help clean up, and I really can't, I can't really help set up because I'm busy. Okay, that will get me hot. People saying, I'm too busy to help. I can guarantee you the busiest people in their lives in AA are also absolutely they're here and they're now and they're taking commitments. The people that are like, yeah, I'm kind of like, I don't know, I'm thinking about getting a job because my mom is like really wants me to get off the couch, but I like can't because I'm thinking of getting a job, so I can't take a commitment. It's like, those are words that will kill. They're going to kill that person. But then sometimes I go to meetings where I kind of hear that stuff. I hear those things. I choose not to drink today. That's not what I learned. I'm powerless over alcohol. My life is unmanageable. I came in because my life was unmanageable. I did not believe I was powerless over alcohol. I came in and I learned, and that's the message I carried to panels and people just starting. I go, this is the time to figure out if you're an alcoholic or not. This is the most important thing we can do, is help somebody try to figure out if you're an alcoholic. A lot of people just think they're drug addicts. A lot of people don't think they're either. They're just like, I don't know, I spent the last 20 years in prison. I'm not sure what happened. There's like 15 drug charges, but thanks for coming. But I mean, that's the insanity we have. So if I have a moment of clarity, like, oh, maybe I'm an alcoholic, then I'm jumping in. I've got 10 minutes to wrap up. You guys are thrilled. But I will tell you, it's like going through all these steps, and like how they say, Joe and Charlie say, first step is to identify the problem, right? Second step tells you what the solution is, to find a power greater than myself. The rest of the steps are action steps telling me how to get that solution, how to get the power greater than myself. It's through sacrifice, helping others, that I get that. I've been, and it's funny, I was thinking about like beginner's mind. It's easy if you've ever done yoga or there's certain other things, I don't even know what they are, maybe if they're martial arts or something, I never did anything like that, but where I have to be open to learning at all times, right? So if I'm going and if I don't have this beginner's mind to, for instance, meditation, right? I don't want to do meditation because I want to be busy. And so I start talking to people about it. And on my little gratitude list, I'm asking people, what I used to do it differently. Like I'd take my kids to school and I'd have this time when I had to wait for them at 0 period and I could do this set meditation and I do a different meditation. I just started talking about it this week, like outing myself that I don't have I do set prayers in the morning, set meditation. And so all of a sudden, I'm on day 4, I think, of my meditation. And I will say, and it's just a 5-minute meditation. And I will say that yesterday, mid-meditation, my husband, he started to, and I'm like, in beginner's mind. And he's like, honey, and I'm like, what? Middle of just feeling it. What? I sounded like a screechy witch. And I was like, well, that was charming. But, this is just how I've done everything around here. And nobody gave me the idea, except for those, like there are the women that would tell me, take a bubble bath, stop saying the F word, blah, 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 do all this nice stuff. And it was too much for me. And they'll tell you, people, it says it in the book. It says, don't try to get people to stop smoking and stop swearing. It's enough. Isn't it enough that we're stopping doing alcohol and drugs? And, and the key is to helping others. And I have to get motivated that way. I have to think about that all the time. And so I'm constantly in service. And what's really funny is my husband was going, you really should get get some kind of degree, then you could get paid for this. And I was like, yeah, but then it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And I go, and I've had those people that say, I was taught being a professional around here, a professional therapist will get you killed. Because, and I sat there in so many meetings when I was new, and I would hear, if they get loaded again because they're the counselors, the AA counselors. And it's a very dangerous profession for us. And I have friends that have done it, and they seem to be mildly happy or not happy, but not everybody is, And I know I can't toy with it. I know I cannot do it. And I will say 9th step is a freedom step. And I had the most spiritual things happen to me in my 9th step amends. My brother followed me into AA, and he found my dad because he's an attorney, so he knows all the, secret ways to find people. And he actually found my dad, who I hadn't seen for over 30 years. I didn't even know I wanted to see him. I was like, that was done. That didn't work out, you know. And instead he found my dad. And I got to go see my dad. And then within days, oh, here's the other weird thing. I had never remembered that his birthday is my sobriety birthday. And I always loved my dad, but he was a lunatic, like angry gangster, and brilliant. I loved him to pieces, man. I just loved him. But, you know, not really hard for him to have a daughter. You know, those guys it's hard for them to have a daughter. But I got to see him and tell him I loved him. I didn't even know that was important. And if I hadn't been into Ninth Step Amends, I wouldn't have ever gotten that experience of seeing him and being there. And I feel like he and I have a great relationship now. Like, I chat with him all the time. And I would say, you know, and I've gone into Terminal Island Prison for over 20 years, just got that. I just dropped that commitment. For one reason, I have an old sponsee who's in prison right now for attempted murder, and not her fault. No, but she, honestly, if you knew the circumstances, you'd probably back her on it. But I wanted to be able to talk to her, and I've done it for over 20 years going into the prison. But those, you know, you go into a prison and you see guys staying sober, and you try to come out, and they have commitments in the prison, and they sponsor each other in the prison. And when you come out, it's very hard to tell yourself, I can't do this or that, when they're doing it. And those guys were the first ones to really teach me about prayer and meditation, because that's what they do to get over the walls and get free. There's so much here in AA, and I would just like encourage everybody. I was also taught to get one of these commitments. Everybody get one of those commitments at least once in your life. The CSR, the GSR, the dreaded GSR, which my Selena has gotten me intrigued about because she's so like enthusiastic about it. I would like GSR, no, you know. But I like being a CSR, and they didn't like me too much for a while because I was banging on them about money, and then found out I was right about that too. But that's why we need to be going in there. Thank you. We need to be going in there. We need CSRs because you got to watch what's going on in there. Because if you're sending money there, if you're not sending money, what do you care? But you can go in and you can buy books there, and they answer telephones there. For alcoholics, that now everybody's going online so much, but still there are AA 12-step calls that come in, and it's a great way to be of service. I used to do it in the LA Central office. I did it for a long time, and I had a phone shift there. And I learned so much. You learn a lot, either being even in GSR, CSR, and hanging with those old guys. You hang with the winners, the tough guys, the tough women that keep coming back no matter what happens, and that tell the truth. Like, people get up at the podium. Like, I was taught, you have to know there's podium talk, and then there's the real talk. And the podium talk, I did this at Torrance Memorial one night. I said, you know, if you've been cheating on your wife, or not paying your taxes, or you're late on your rent, or you're upside down in your mortgage, or, you know, you're lying about something, tell somebody. Just tell somebody, because there's a lot of people here that are doing it. And I had two guys come up to me at the end of the meeting and say, two of them, one an older guy who ended up getting a CSR commitment that he liked because he was just feeling like he didn't want to be here anymore. And then a young kid who said, I want to kill myself. And then ran away. I was like, wait. And then he came up to me at an Ohio Street meeting. He goes, hey, man, I'm sorry. He said, but I did tell my sponsor how I was feeling, and I'm still here, and I wanted you to know, right? These are the kind of things, how we help each other. You don't care if I don't have my doctorate in anything. I didn't even finish college. But I don't care when people get up here and go, I got my doctorate. I did this. I went to Russia. I don't care. I mean, that's nice for you and everything, like over coffee. But what I want to hear is like the nitty gritty and what actually happened, man. How are you doing today? How are you staying sober today? Even with all our little things, we are not saints here. And so whatever is at the podium is one talk, you know, and then one-on-one, I'll tell you anything about my life, every detail of my life, where every body is buried, if it will help you And you can't, because I always thought, looking up at people at the podium, I thought, well, I can't do that. She didn't say the F word, and they had all these things. I don't know if I can stay sober that long. But, the guy who would stand up and go, yeah, I just got out of a mental institution and I'm wearing my bathrobe to the meeting, but I'm still sober. And I'd be like, maybe I can do this. That woman who's in prison for attempted murder, it was so dumb because she should have told me what she was doing. She was trying to hire somebody on the dark web to kill somebody who killed her sister. Totally understandable in my mind. But like the feds are all over that. But so she called her mom, and her mom told me she got her 21-year sober chip. And she's the assistant to the chaplain. God works with whatever we give him around here. He works with, the stumble down drunks and the fancy schmancies, but we have to give him something to work with. I can't just stay home and pray for a ham sandwich. That's what I was taught. You want a ham sandwich, get out of the closet, go to the kitchen and make a ham sandwich. I don't eat ham, but that's just the story. But, and to stand up, and I don't shrink from anybody. This is all a God thing. And I know people don't like to hear God. They don't want to. I met this woman the other day. I don't even want to hear higher power. I'm like, why are you here? This is a spiritual program. Higher power. She's upset about all the words. I go, I don't know, great spirit in the sky, the wind, the earth, anything. She's like, no, that's all stupid. I'm like, okay, then go online, which I did. I'm like, maybe I'm crazy. But there's many secular solutions, supposedly. They don't do as well as we do, but they have secular solutions. So I try to get them there because we're last house on the block. This is tough to do this stuff sometimes. But it's all that. I give it all. This is all my higher power. And so that's why I'm the one who will mouth off sometimes and take flack, because I really believe in standing up for the traditions, helping people, helping newcomers. My sponsor always, they tried to throw a guy who had stolen some of the treasury. The basket went around and a guy had taken a handful of money out. And and they're like, throw him out of the meeting. She goes, are you kidding? Look at this meeting. She goes, we're sitting in with a bunch of thieves. She goes, you're going to throw everybody out? You just want to throw him out because he's a little skinny guy? She goes, no, nobody's getting thrown out here. So that's how I was raised around here, to stand up for AA, stand up for alcoholics, and we all get to, find our own instrument in the orchestra. Some of us are doing the little triangle, and some of us are banging the drum. We get to take parts in different ways. So I hope I've enthused you to participate in AA and help somebody today. Thank you.
Oh, so wonderful. All right.